Hi, book friends. Welcome back to Stories with Jules, my book channel here on YouTube. This is a new space for me. We are creating together, and I'm getting more comfortable doing long form content. I am excited to be here with you. Get yourself a drink, as I'm going to talk about my 2025 goals and how I came up with them and what that looks like. I know that we are a bit into the year. I did wanted to document it and put it on YouTube for those who might not follow me in other spaces to know what to expect on this channel and what I'm trying to get out of reading this year, and also maybe give you some ideas for yourself in your reading journey. This is my 5th year of heavily reading books. I got back into reading books in 2021, and since then have read almost 400 books. Probably 400 books by the time I post this, but about 400 books. The books I read range from fantasy, gothic, sci-fi, romance, dark romance. I would say those 5 genres for the most part, but I'm pretty much open to reading anything. The only thing I don't read a lot of is biographies, as well as a lot of historical fiction. I don't mind historical fiction in like a fantasy setting, but on its own, that I would say those two things, historical fiction and biographies, just don't hold my attention as much as everything else. I will every once in a while read a biography or a memoir if it's someone I really am interested in. I will sprinkle those in, but they're not going to be as common on this page. So let's get into my goals and vision for my reading journey in 2025. I was definitely a silent watcher in the Bookish space for years before I decided to make my own accounts and show my face. And so y'all were building my reading list without even knowing for a long time, as well as just being on Goodreads, and now we have Fable and Storygraph, and seeing what other bookish spaces were putting out as far as what was being read. Before 2021, I did read, I just didn't read a lot. I would say I read more like 15 books a year, which is still a lot for most people. I now average around 100 a year, unless they're thicker books, but I now read a lot more than 15 a year. I've already read more than that this year. In the past, I would read, and I tried to read, but I was more reading because it was I'm supposed to, this is good for you, this is healthy for you. It wasn't I want to, this is fun, I want to go into a new world with my new friends, my characters. It wasn't that until 2021, where I discovered this is actually fun and it's not a chore, and I want to find books that make me feel this way over and over again. I say all that to say I did in 23 and 24 make monthly TBRs, what I wanted to read each month, plan it out, and what series am I getting into next, what author do I want to read next. But part of the problem, or not problem, but just building of what I want to read is contingent on what is available through the library, as I use Libby and Hoopla heavily to read and build my TBR. While I do have physical books, and I do have quite a few physical books, a lot of what I want to read I don't own yet. I am very grateful to have the resource of the library to help me expand what I otherwise wouldn't have access to. I also have Kindle Unlimited and Audible for 1 credit a month to also have me have more access to books I wouldn't otherwise have access to in my physical home right now. And so depending on what all those platforms have also shapes what I'm going to read each month. Being in the bookish space with all of you, my TBR is endless. My want to reads has probably close to 1,000 books at this point, and it's more like a guide or kind of like a what am I in the mood for to scroll through, as well as that list of over 900 books is not books I physically own. It's just list on my phone as far as, oh, someone said this was great, or someone said this was like this, or I really want to read that series. On top of that, the list of over 900 books, for the majority, is only like the first book of a series that I saved, and it's not even the whole series. So if you were to add the whole series, you can imagine how voluminous my TBR is. With that in mind, I also get distracted with new releases, as well as all of you and my friends saying this is what's popular, this is what everyone needs to read, I really want y'all to read this so we can talk about it, or this has this trope. And so I was feeling very stressed being type A and being very much I need a plan, and it feels all over the place with all of what I just said. I sat down at the end of 2024 and I went through my phone as far as saved videos and books that I had saved from my friends. I went through my saved list. I had that voluminous list of want to reads, and I built a spreadsheet of that for like my most want to reads. When I see it, I want to read that more than these other ones right now, at least in this season of reading, and what sounds good to me. Now that I have narrowed down the list, I then took it a step further and I went on Goodreads and I got an average for how many pages I have read from 2021 forward for each year, how much I have read in page count and not book count, because a lot of the books I want to read that I have not read are thicker books, and so I know I will read less books doing this than I would in previous years, and so I wanted to know on average what I can do in page count to know how many books I can fit in that. Once I knew my page number and what I could do on average in a month, I had another spreadsheet and I built it out in all 12 months. I then, like a giant puzzle, this is exposing myself a bit, but I then, like a giant puzzle, saw the books I want to read most over here. I had made beside them how many pages each book had and the equivalent of what it would be in audiobook form. I then built out how much I could read in a month and fit them in months. So if this series takes 2 months to read based off of my average, where do I want to put that in the year where I can have 2 months to read it and not get distracted with something else, and I know this is designated time for that. Example of this would be Red Rising. I really wanted to read Red Rising. It had been on my TBR for at least 4 years. I had received the physical copies for Christmas in 2024 and I knew I wanted to read it, and I had marked it on my TBR. I would need at least 2 months, if that was all I was reading, time, and when am I going to do that? And because I did that, I have now finished Red Rising, which I don't think I would have done if I hadn't made this list to make it seem feasible to me, because without having carved out time, I think a 6-book series as thick as these books are, I don't think I would have felt like I could have done that this year. So this has been really helpful, and I hope this makes sense. Please let me know if you have questions, as well as if you've done something similar to this, so I feel less alone in how crazy I am with planning. I would appreciate it. And if this is like, girl, you are way too crazy, I am way too much a mood reader, I know I'm a mood reader too. I wanted to also say in each month I had variety, obviously, unless I'm doing a big series, but for example, let me read you one of the months. So in April, I had This Ends in Embers, which is a BIPOC fantasy with queer representation. I had Wild and Wrangled, which is a cowboy romance for something light and fluffy and funny. I had House of Flame and Shadow. It's the only book I have left that I haven't read of Sarah J. Maas. It's a big book, so I needed enough time set aside to do that. I had book 3 in the Legend Born cycle, which is also a pretty big book. book. And then I had a duology that has been on my physical TBR for years, which is Dance of Thieves. On my Kindle, if I had time to get to it, Visions and Shadows, which is, I think it's a darker fantasy from what I remember. I know very little about it. I just know my friends rate it highly, which is one of those, my friends rate it highly and I really want to read it. So I tried to sprinkle in variety, and then another month would have sci-fi and another month would have gothic. So I tried to balance it to where I would really enjoy what I was reading. Depending on what my mood is, there will be a book, because within the month I can choose of that list what I want to pick up. Do I want the cowboy romance, or do I want high fantasy, or do I want to start the duology? So it isn't that I'm reading all romance and it's all the same, or I'm reading all fantasy and it's all the same, so I get burnt out. And I think that is why this is working so well for me as we are later into the year, and I am really enjoying this creation that I made. Moving on a little bit from this, on average I read 90 books a year. However, with trying to read bigger books, I really want to focus more on page count and less on book count. So my yearly page count in 2024 was 32,182 pages. I want to read around 30,000 pages. If I am within this range, I will be happy. And as far as total number of books, I set my goal for 50, but really if it's more or less, I really don't care as long as I am actively reading. To say I don't care about the amount of books I read is not really true. I'm just trying to focus what I care about to other things so that it doesn't bother me as much if that number goes down, because otherwise I feel like I'll never be able to get to the chunky mamas that I want to read, because I'm so worried about finishing a book that I pick a smaller book so I can mark it on my list. My structure for each month was around 3,000 pages. Some months I might have a smaller monthly TBR because those books add up to 3,000 pages quickly. Some months I might have more books because they're smaller. So anyways, I hope this makes sense. And again, let me know if you have questions. This is really working for me. I've talked about this a little bit on my shorter videos on my other platforms, but I wanted to have time to actually elaborate and also talk about how it's making me feel. And it's making me feel great. I have way less stress and way less as far as taking a lot of my brain cells to figure out what I'm going to read next and why, and prioritizing what and why. All of that has really been eliminated as I did it. Obviously it took several days, but I did all of it at the end of 2024 for the year. So I am feeling very stress-free. And even if I don't read all the books on my list for this year, I will still feel great because I'm reading basically every day regardless. I'm trying to be much more intentional and meaningful and try to really just enjoy reading and have it be less of like a race with myself, which is really hard, but I am trying. Outside of the numbers and outside of building my yearly TBR, I thought we could talk about some of my other reading goals and maybe see if these are yours as well. And those would be, I wanted to have more 5-star reads. In 24, I only had 15 reads for the year that were 5 stars. While 15 5-star reads are great, I didn't feel like 24 was my best reading year. I really think I enjoyed 23 a lot more than I did in 24 as far as what I read. I found in 24 I was reading probably a lot more of what was being talked about at that point in time and less of like my backlog and authors that I know will really resonate with me, and books that even though I haven't read them, I really think they will be for me. I kept kind of pushing off because they weren't being hyped up in the moment. And in 25, I'm really trying to let that go and know that I'll read it when it's time for me to read it and maybe not when everyone else is talking about it. In reading more 5-star reads, as of today, I have already had 10 5-star reads and have read over 25 books. So that alone is a much higher ratio of 5-star reads, and I am very happy that in choosing the books that for the season of reading I'm in right now has really also translated to a better outcome. I'm also hoping to do a buddy read this year. That is a goal of mine. I haven't done a buddy read technically. I have read in book clubs with people. I have read the same book and discussed it with friends, but I haven't actually we're going to read chapter by chapter and discuss. I haven't done before. I just think it would really enhance the reading experience. So that is also a goal. So if you want a buddy read a book with me, let me know, as I'd love to set that up with you. By the way, there's mowing outside. I hope it's not interacting with this video, and I hope it's not annoying, but if we hear it, I'm sorry. I'm hoping the mic isn't picking it up. Part of my goals is to read more series and backlogs of authors in my physical TBR, and so far I would say I've been pretty successful in doing this. I have been marking off books on my physical shelf, and that has felt really good. I also have been reading more of my backlog as far as what was on my want to reads mountain list that I have. I don't know about you, but I try to review books. But the amount of books I read and the way I like to review takes a lot of time. I decided instead of trying to review every book and then feeling like I fail when I don't do it, is I want to just at least review my 5-star reads. And then if I want to review my 4 stars or any others, of course I can, but the goal is just to maintain my 5-star reads so I can talk about them, because I know I'm going to want to share those with y'all, and so I can have what made it a 5-star for me, and then anything else I get to is just extra. Yay, we did it, but it's not mandatory. And so far I have kept up with rating all of my 5-star reads for the year, and those reviews you can find on Goodreads and Fable, and so I am very proud of myself for that. I feel very accomplished, and I know not everyone writes reviews, and I know not everyone reads them. I really like to help people and to assist, and my love language is definitely acts of service. Be doing an act of service of writing a review for you that might help someone else decide if they would read it or not, what I got out of it without giving spoilers. I know for myself I would find that really helpful, and so that is partly why I write reviews. And I know some people read and never write a review or do a rating in their life. Moving on to another goal I had was to do more immersive reading, where you're listening to the audiobook and physically reading the book at the same time or in tandem. I found this way of reading in 2023, and then I did it a handful of times in 2024, but it wasn't until this year that I was like, okay, I really like that. I want to be more intentional about doing it and not just doing the audiobook and not just doing the physical book on their own, and this has been great. I did the Red Rising series this way, where I was reading it, but then I had the graphic audio going, and it helped with all the names and all the pronunciations and all the places we're going. And if you've read that series, you know how voluminous the cast is and how many places we are going, and it really just adds to, for me, what I get out of the story when I read books this way. I really try to read a lot, mainly women authors and also BIPOC authors, as well as queer representation. Those 3 things are important to me and mostly what I read. And this year I'm giving myself grace and reading more from white men and white authors and straight authors that I might not read otherwise that have been on my TBR, and I think I will really enjoy their bodies of work, something I've kind of been getting comfortable with myself, hence Red Rising and Brandon Sanderson and other authors in 24. I tried to read more books by men, I know, but I did, and I read 4, and I liked 2 of them. And then the year before that, I read 1, I want to say. This year, I already have done more than that just by reading the Red Rising series. It will all be a wash at the end of the day. It will all balance out because I know at the end of the day what is on my TBR is I have other diverse books touched on this, but caring less about what is trending and more reading like for the season that I'm in. And the season that I'm in is I am reading anything that's freaking gothic. Gothic fantasy, gothic romance is my everything. Like, I want it all. That is very much the season I'm in. I want darker, I want complex, I want kingdoms burning, I want strong FMCs, and they can be a quiet strong. They don't have to be the loudest one in the room, but I just want strength in my characters. I want to read about Vikings, and I want to read more with dragons, as I know we all love dragons, but I haven't read a lot with dragons recently, and so in 25 I was really trying to read more books that had dragons or other mythical creatures in them. High stakes, more thicker books because we need that build up. More a heightened sense of we are overthrowing power and people are dying and I am stressed. That's the type of reading season that I am in. I have 2 more goals, and one was request reader advance copies. I have done a handful of this on NetGalley. I made an account on NetGalley earlier this year. So exciting. I have not actually received an ARC yet. I am still working on that. I am still requesting and logging on and sending in request forms. I also am reaching out to publishers. I'm really trying to not let the no's stop me from asking. I know I will receive book mail. I just have to be patient and the right one will come to me. And then the last thing, going through my backlog of books and getting caught up on either my physical TBR or not just that, but books that are on my want to reads. So finishing series I was in the middle of, or reading authors' backlogs that I haven't gotten to because I was chasing the next shiny thing at the time. Things like that. And so these were the goals that I'm focusing on this year. Honestly, I don't feel like it's that many or that intense, and that's kind of intentional. If you can't tell, I really wanted 25 to just be about the journey and the funness of reading. I really wanted to bring the fun back. Not that I wasn't having fun before, I totally was, but I just needed to quit stressing myself out a little bit. I know that y'all will be here along the way. Let me know what your goals are and if we have any of the same goals. And again, if you have questions about how I built my TBR or my yearly TBR, as I know that to me that seems unusual. I don't see a lot of people doing that. And while I still do have monthly TBRs, I don't really see people planning out their entire reading list for the year. If y'all want to know my entire reading list for the year and what the actual books were for each month, let me know and I can put that in a separate video and we can just talk about the books I picked and why, if you want to do that. I think that would be a lot of fun, but let me know if that's something you would want to see. But I hope y'all have a great day and thank you so much for watching.